We're in the middle of discussing the height of the Aroin. The height of the Aroin, just to put us back into perspective, on Dalid Amid Beis, we wanted to know, how do we know that the minimum height of a sukkah is 10 tfachim? That was in the bottom of Dalid Amid Beis. The Gemara said we learned it out from the Aroin being 10 tfachim. How do I know the Aroin is 10 tfachim? 9 tfachim we learned from the pasuk that says it's an amma and a half. And the kapayres being a tefach, that was the big discussion. How do we know the kapayres was a tefach? I mean, a very lengthy, literally the whole Hayam and Aleph, half of Hayam and Beis was all discussing, how do I know that the thickness of the kapayres was a tefach? And from all of that, we proved that the Aroin was 10 tfachim tall. But now we have a kasha. So we basically proved that a sukkah's minimum height has to be 10 tefachim. Okay, so far so good. But it asks the Gemara, hey Amid Beis, approximately, I don't know, let's call it about 15 lines from the top. The first word on the line is Adam. Adam, just scan down Adam. I always point out, I don't know where Rabbeim got the whole number of lines. You just give the first word on the line, it is that much easier to find it. Just scan down, find the word Adam. Takes about 4 seconds, and you'll find it. I don't know. Maybe I didn't go to Rebbe school. And it's like a thing you have to do it by numbers of lines. I'm not sure. But anyways, this way works better for me. Umi Mai, at the end of that line, yeah? Umi Mai, are we all with me? Umi Mai. Yes? 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 I'm on the end of a triple espresso iced coffee, so my energy level is high, so I apologize. Umi Mai. The Chalala. Chalala is an airspace. How do you know the Chalala Asara, that when we talk about the airspace of Asara of 10 Tvachim, is bar, is except from Mischacha the Schach? Ema, let us say, Bihade Schacha. Maybe the 10 Tfachim is including the Schach, which means what? That the interior would be much less. If we were to measure from the floor to the ceiling inside this room, it would be much less than the floor to the top of the roof from outside the room. So asks the Gemara, how do you know? Very good, you proved to me that the minimum height of a sukkah is 10 tfachim, but how do you know which way to measure the 10 tfachim? Is it 10 tfachim of usable interior airspace, or is it 10 tfachim of exterior airspace, and your interior is less? And therefore, because of that, the Gemara goes for a new makar, meaning all our other makarais didn't address this point, how big the interior is. Ella, says the Gemara, mi beis oilamim gamar. We learn it from beis oilamim, which is the eternal house, which in English is the beis hamikdash. Interesting why we call it beis oilamim. I don't really know, but it means the beis hamikdash. Dichsev. We learned in a pasuk. Everyone, we have minimal math. I'm not good at math, so don't worry, we'll get it together. Vahabayis, and the house, the Beis Hamikdash, Asher Bana HaMelech Shlomo, that Shlomo HaMelech built LaHashem, Shishim Ama Arkoi. The Oirech is the length, 60 Amos long. The Esrim and 20 Amos Rachvoi was the width. Ushloishim Ama Kaimasai. The height of the Beis Hamikdash was 30 feet. Put in perspective, that's approximately 30 amos, approximately 45 feet. Pretty tall roof. Okay. Shloishim amma kaimasli. Who cares? Why is this relevant to us? Ukisiv. And another pasuk teaches us kaimas hakruv. How tall were the kruvim? The height of the kruv, ha'echad, of one of the kruvim was eser be'ama. 10 amos tall was the kruv. V'chein ha'kruv ha'sheni. And so too was the second kruv. Yeah. I'm asking. But these are psukim and malachim, so I'm not going to pretend to be proficient in the way Navi is written, so I'm just going to take it. But yeah, it is odd. I'm asking. So we are saying the height again is 30 amos. The kruv is 10 amos. We all could do a little math. 10 to 30 is a third. The kruvim were a third of the height of the Beis Hamikdash. So what? Vitanya, and we learned in a brisa.
The Aron was not so wide.
We're talking only height right now. Only
Aron,
height.
The dimension of the Kruvim were the Aron was only so high, so wide, and so tall. Like
Okay.
3 amos wide or something.
Okay. Okay.
They were towering.
Okay. So first of all, Stam, you're asking a good question. Gemara Babasa tells what you're saying. If you actually go look, it doesn't fit in the room. The Kuvim actually don't fit inside the Kodesh Kodashim. And the Gemara says, B'nei Sayoimdim, and it was a miracle that they were there.
And even the Mishkan, when they forgot about
Correct. So we're just dealing with the numbers we're given, but you happen to be correct. I think, actually last time we learned this, I was looking for this. I think there's an opinion, I'm like nervous to say this, that the Kruvim were freestanding in the Beis HaMikdash. I don't know if what I'm saying is correct, that they weren't, the pictures don't show that. The pictures, by the way, look at the back, it's actually nice pictures. The picture shows the top of the Aron. I think there's an opinion that the Kruvim were actually standing on the floor. But either way, the Kruvim were, that's a Gemara Brachas, hence it won't have the pictures of Sukkah. But there's a picture book, in the wall. That's also Brachas. Oh, Sukkah, good, beautiful, it's in there. There you go, there's picture books, there's like 20 of them. You have that.
You mean freestanding 30, huh?
The Kodesh HaKadoshim height was 30 amos. The length and width, they don't fit. Again, the pictures here are drawn to make everything work, so we could just understand it.
How does the Kruvim freestanding answer that?
I don't know. Again, it's just an opinion. I was just curious if anyone heard something about that. Someone mentioned that to me. I don't know if it's true. Here, let's look over here again. Now, so why is this relevant to us? So far, we just learned that the height was 30 and the Keruvim were 10. So 10 to 30 is 1/3. Vitanya, and we learned in a brisa, ma motzinu, just like we find. Beis Olamim, says the brisa, just like we find in the Beis HaMikdash, Kruvim, that the Kruvim were Bishlish habayis hein oimdim, were a third of the house, were a third of the Beis HaMikdash. Mishkan Nami. This is where it brings us back home. The Mishkan as well. Kruvim bishlish habayis hein oimdim. The Kruvim were a third of the house. So now what do we have to figure out? How tall was the Mishkan? Says the Gemara. Again, step A was Beis HaMikdash 30 amos tall, Kruvim are 10. 10 to 30 is 1/3. Step B is the Brisa says that the same ratio in the Beis HaMikdash was in the Mishkan. Okay, so now let's figure out how tall was the Mishkan. Mishkan kama have, says the Gemara, Eser amos, 10 amos tall. Tersiv, as the pasuk says, Eser amos, 10 amos was oirech, was the length of hakeresh, of each beam, the beams around the Mishkan. So now, if the Mishkan was 10 amos tall, what's a third of 10? Well, that's a hard one, but a third of 10. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert amos to tfachim, and then we'll be able to figure out how tall it is. Says the Gemara, Kama haveluhu, how much is that? How many tfachim is 10 amos? So we've learned already that each amma is 6 tfachim. Shitin pushchi. The word pushchi means tfachim. 60, shitin is 60, pushchi, 60 tfachim. So now, that's the height of the Mishkan. What's a third of 60? Tilsei is a third. Aramaic, tlas is 3. Tlas shalosh, tlas is 3. So tilsei, Aramaic, is a third. Kama have, what's a third of 60? Esrim, 20 tfachim. So the height of the top of the Kruvim in the Mishkan was 20 tfachim. Hoshchei, Esrim Pushchi, 20 tfachim, excuse me. Dal means subtract. Dal asara de aron v'kapayres. We already know that the aron and the kapayres were 10 tfachim. So the aron and kapayres are 10 tfachim. Hashiluhu, what do you have left? Asara. So the Kruvim in the Mishkan were 10 tfachim tall. Who cares? What relevance to us? Shkayach. We knew the Aron was 10. Now we're extending that the Aron is 10. Also, says the Gemara, we figured out through extensive math that the Kruvim were 10. And here's the punchline. Ukesiv. And it says in the Pasuk in Shemais, V'hayu ha-kruvim. And the Kruvim were Parsei kinafayim. Their wings were spread out. Limaila, above them. And what's the next word? Soy chin. What does that sound like? Schach. Soichechin, covering or sheltering. Bikanfehem al ha-kapires. Sheltering with their wings on the kapires. So from here we could prove Harye Rachmana Succah, the Torah calls Succah lemala me'asara, above 10. So now we know that if the top edge of the Keruvim is at 20 Tvachim, and from the top edge to the top edge of the Aron is another 10 Tvachim, now we know you need 10 Tvachim of interior ear space. So what the Gemara just proved so beautifully is the fact that the Aron was 10 Tfachim didn't show us whether it's 10 Tfachim interior space or 10 Tfachim height. But now that we can prove that the Kruvim were spread above, and the word is Schach, covered over, so it shows us that when you're covered over 10 Tfachim, that's the Makar for our Sukkah, interior space being 10 tefachim. Now, there is a problem, which let's look at the Gemara's Kasha, which might be, I do think that there's something that doesn't sit right now, because there was a hanacha the Gemara made, which the Gemara jumps on right now. Ask the Gemara, Mimai, how do you know Digadfinhu, that their wings were Ilui Rashayu, were above their head? I got to have all these words written in my Gemara. Were Ilui Rashayu. I'm just telling you what I do. This is straight from high school. Baruch Hashem. Were above their head. How do you know, Kaimi? Dilma, what? Lehade Rashayu Kaimi. Maybe they were equal with their head, which therefore would do what? Bring the whole question back. The whole question was, is it 10 tefachim of interior ear space, or is it 10 tefachim at the top of the schach? So if their wings are at the 10 tefach mark, and underneath it is 10 tefachim, then we have a raya. But if their wings weren't above 10 tefachim, were equal with their head, so then we don't have a raya anymore. Now it's true, you want to know how thick were the wings? That's a very good question, which we don't know right now. But one thing we do know is that we wouldn't have a raya that you need 10 tefachim of interior ear space if their wings were a little below. Now, it could be, you're right, it could be the whole thickness of the wing was, I don't know, an inch or two, a half a tefach, but we wouldn't have a raya that the interior ear space. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Limala kisiv. It says it was above. So it says that the wings were lemala. Let's look back at the pasuk. V'hayu akruvim parsei kinafayim lemala. That word is extra. Didn't need that word. The pasuk reads, and the kruvim spread their wings, parsei kinafayim. It could have said soichachim mikanfeim, covering with their wings on the kapairos. Why did it say lemala? Above, covering with their wings. So that word lemala shows us the wings had to be above, meaning that there's an eternal airspace. Says the Gemara, 1 second. If you have an extra word, I don't know, maybe their wings were 20 tefachim up in the air. How do you know? If you have this extra word, lemala, maybe they were standing azoi. Ask the Gemara, ve'ema demidli tuva, maybe they were very far, much more than 10 tefachim. Says the Gemara, mi kisev lemala. A little bit of a cop-out answer. It doesn't say very above. It says limala, which shows it was directly above. That is the raya. No, because if it's from an extra word, for the terrorists, you see, it wasn't such a good kasha. Yeah, you're asking a good point. You're asking a good point. You're asking a good point. I'm asking with you. I don't, say the question is no good, the terrorists is no good, but okay. So now, this is the end of the Gemara. from here, we now have a raya that the interior airspace has to be 10 tefachim. Let's speak it outside. It's a little bit of a long-winded raya, but it has to be very simple. I'm going to say the raya reverse. I think sometimes you say it the other way. It helps your brain put it in. In the Mishkan, the Keruvim spread their wings, schacht their wings, pardon the made-up word, soichach in their wings, above the Aroin, 10 tefachim. That's how we know the Sukkah has to be 10 tefachim. How do I know that the Keruvim put their wings 10 tefachim above the Aroin? Because I know that the top of the Keruvim was 20 tefachim. And I know the Aroin was 10 tefachim. So I know that in between has 10 tefachim. Well, how do you know the top of the Keruvim were 10 tefachim? Well, the answer is I don't really know the top of the Keruvim 10 tefachim. I know that the Mishkan was 60 tefachim. How did the Mishkan was 60 tefachim? Because the pasuk says the Mishkan was 10 amos. 10 amos is 60 tefachim. So if I know the Mishkan is 60 tefachim, how big were the Keruvim? A third. How do you know a third? Because by the Beis HaMikdash we saw a pasuk that Shlomo HaMelech clearly built the Beis HaMikdash in relationship of a third of 60 of 20 of my brain just turned off 30 amos tall and 10 amos at the top of the Keruvim. By the way, if you're listening, everything in the Beis HaMikdash was magnified for size. The Keruvim there were 10 amos, much bigger than what we're talking about. Much bigger than we're talking about. Okay, everything was magnified for size. And that is the raya. Now, we're going to leave over here. The next kasha is going to be, there was one hanacha we took to get here. Was that the last step, we said, the Mishkan was 10 amos. When we converted amos to tfachim, we said, oh, you know what an amma is? 6 tfachim. The next Gemara is going to say, slow down. That's a machlekes. If an amma is 6 tfachim. If an amma is not 6 tfachim, then the whole thing goes up in flames, and we got to get a new makar, b'siyata, this